Hello and welcome to South Africa on 99.94 Cricket Every Day. I'm Neil Manthorpe. My fellow host is Lungani Zama. South Africa on 99.94 is your new home for South African content. We'll be dropping into your podcast feed on YouTube or the 99.94 app several times every week. I'm sure that those of you who've been following us for a while are aware that Sams and I are with you at least twice a week, and we're in October anyway. So please rate, review and subscribe. And if you get the chance, do check out the Mitch Johnson show, talking about the Aussie Quick, talking about his life in cricket and his life after cricket as well. You can find it wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Thanks for joining Cricket's Conversation. We're going to talk a little bit in this episode about some domestic matters. First of all, the appointment of a new interim Proteas men's coach. Malibongwe Maketa is currently the SAA coach, but South Africa A don't play very much cricket. So he's also part of the High Performance Academy. He's a highly regarded coach. He had considerable domestic success with the Warriors in the Eastern Cape. It's an interim appointment. I think you know where I'm heading with that, Zams. But first of all, when we discussed the possibilities for a new head coach, I certainly was a big fan of Malibongwe Maketa. And I said, I did ask the question, where's he gone? Why isn't he the front runner? I mean, he's surely the natural successor. And so, yeah, he's got the job. He's got to take the team to Australia for 3 test matches.
Yeah, when you hear the words interim coach, man, is you definitely, the mind goes back to 2019 when Enoch Nkwe was given that poison challenge to go to India, and I was on that tour, and it felt like mission impossible. I think Mali is probably actually in a better position in terms of the team and the prospects of going to Australia. There's a lot less scarring. South Africa have won their last 3 trips to Australia. They've got the attack that can exploit the conditions. So maybe not as mission impossible as going to India after World Cup trauma and losing hundreds and hundreds of test caps of experience. The only concern is it's been a while since he's sort of locked horns with top coaches and really got stuck into the day-to-day of international cricket coaching. The pandemic was not kind to the SA team. They hardly played. So he's twiddled his thumbs, and you'd hope that he stayed sharp whichever way that he stayed. And obviously the next few weeks are going to be crucial in terms of getting ready. But like you say, he was assistant to Otis Gibson, and by all accounts of members of that team, he was popular and he was methodical and he was thorough. There was a quiet intensity about him. So in that sense, yeah, he was next in line, and this is the opportunity. Let's wish him all the best and see how he goes in the cauldron that is Australia in the prime of summer.
It is mission impossible. I mean, honestly, yes, South Africa do have a very, very fine fast bowling attack. And they will take wickets. But, I mean, given how short of runs they were, given how fragile the batting looked in England, I know it was Duke's Ball and Jimmy Anderson and Ollie Robinson and Stuart Broad, but really, I mean, Hazelwood, Stark, Cummins and whoever else against that top order with a Kookaburra. It's a horrible task. I don't know. I went on my first tour to Australia in '94. So, I spent like a decade and a half going to Australia, fully expecting to be drilled in the commentary box and on the field. And that duly happened. And as you said, 2008, 2012, 2016, 3 extraordinary test series. We'll have to do we'll do a whole podcast before that series. I'll be going to Australia again. but you know, before this tour, I sort of feel like I did before the 98 and 2002, 2007 tours, 2005 tour to Australia. It's just a horrible, horrible task, and a thankless one for an interim coach.
Well, geez, Manners, with that attitude, I definitely hope that the South Africans don't employ those tactics of doom and gloom of 98. Most of these guys weren't even born in 98. Look, Australian cricket is quite likely not going to make the semi-finals of this of a tournament they were expecting to defend on home soil and waltz into the final and, you know, really ramp up the momentum. So they've got their own problems. Yes, the batting is a big concern. But with that big concern are the most similar circumstances that South African batsmen can bat in. Hard, fast pitches with a kookaburra ball coming onto the bat. The likes of Dean Elgar, Esha Ervia will wonder if they'll ever go on another Australian tour. So that alone should inspire whoever's never been there to face up and front up and make a Boxing Day 100 or make a century at, you know, the SCG. These are memories for life, and you can't, regardless who the coaching staff is, regardless how poorly you've done in Test cricket this year, no one can buy you that experience. It's there. It's the opportunity is there. 80,000 people playing and watching a Test match is ludicrous. It just doesn't happen. I don't think South African cricket gets 80,000 people watching an entire series. Now you've got a day where you walk out and there's just thousands upon thousands in this Coliseum. I mean, it's a wonderful opportunity for these dreams that these guys keep ticking off. So there'll be no shortage of motivation, and you've got to approach it in that spirit. I mean, half that team has never ever lost a Test series in Australia. Their mindset is completely opposite. KG went and won a match when there was half an attack injured in the middle of a game. Dale Steyn got injured, didn't matter. Kagiso Rabada still cleaned up the Australians. So how you approach it mentally, and it's probably helped being an Australian now and getting used to the peculiar way that they cover events with a very strong Australian lens, and it's good. It's a good precursor to the series for those who've never been there before. Yes, it's a change of coaching staff, but a lot of the key cogs in that wheel will still be there, and they'll say, actually, Warner, all of them, they don't like it when you get on top of them, and actually they're still in a situation of rebuilding themselves and their reputations as well. So if you put them under pressure, you could shift that noise, and they're the ones feeling the pressure, not us. So it's a great opportunity, not just for Mali, but for young men with big ambitions, and who might have thought, we're just not going to go to Australia at Boxing Day and New Year's anymore. Now they are. So why wouldn't you be excited?
Tell us a little bit about Mali, the man. I mean, he's 42 years old. He's very personable, isn't he? He's very approachable. He's a people person, which I think is a good thing. And dare I say, it will be a contrast to Mark Boucher.
Massive contrast. I think as South Africa and South African sport opens itself up to a different style of leadership, a different style of coaching, where it's not kicking and screaming and intimidating and all for one and band of brothers. Sometimes it's just the more quieter, almost statesman-like, have a quiet word and remind people of how lucky they are, how talented they are. Not that you lack intensity by speaking quietly in a corner as opposed to screaming and shouting at the top of your voice. But, there's different styles and there's different ways to inspire people. And Mali's certainly not going to stand in the dressing room and scream and shout and throw things, Sir Alex Ferguson style. But there's a far more measured approach. There's a quieter, more humble student of the game type. But there's no shortage of passion, and every player that he's worked with will tell you that he's a student of the game. He watches intensely. He takes long hours beyond practice and beyond meetings, analyzing every single aspect of the game so that he can come back the next day to nets and empower that extra 5% to players that need it. He can, put an arm around a shoulder and technically very sound. Analyzes the small details and makes sure that he gives the encouraging voice to players who need it. Sometimes, not everyone thrives on tough love, and there'll be players in that team who are excited about less noise. Not to say that noise hasn't sometimes helped, but just a calmer environment where you can talk things through and you can go and have long coffees and long walks and just think analytically about what it is that you're trying to do as a sportsman, and sort of reflect on the burden of, the exciting burden of responsibility that comes with, going to these new frontiers and representing your team. And he's going to be just as excited because he's never taken a team to Australia and gone to the MCG. So there's an innocence and there's almost a romance in starting this new journey in the toughest of places historically, but approaching it in a way that you've not approached it before. It's not going to be meeting Australia fire with fire because, quite frankly, you can't. It's a learning curve. It's a very steep learning curve, but it's an adventure that they're embarking on together, with a team that's still trying to find itself, now with the coach who's trying to find himself, and a lot of players who are there for the first time. They're going to approach it with fresh eyes, and they'll be better cricketers for it, regardless of the result. So why not start in the one place that people have feared for decades? Why not start it and start it with a clean slate of no emotional scarring and no, oh, don't you dare look at that paper because they're going to write. He doesn't know, and half his players don't know. So you can't be scared of what you don't know. So good for him.
I'm enjoying this. You're in a romantic mood this morning, Sams. Right, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about Dewald Brevis.
You're listening to Cricket's Conversation on 99.94. Whatever your team, we have the show for you on podcast, YouTube, or on the 99.94 app. We have India, England, South Africa, West Indies, and now Sri Lanka covered. If you want to find us, the best way is to follow us on social media at 9994DM by downloading the 9994 app or Google 99.94 on podcast. We speak cricket.
Sams, yes, well, romance is not dead. I like that a lot. Okay, you've just got me thinking, yeah. Okay, maybe I am being a bit pessimistic. But I just don't know who's going to score the runs. Dean Elgar will have to score a lot. Maybe Rassie van der Dussen will finally come good in the Test arena. But as I said, I need to move on to talk about the Cricket South Africa, the CSA T20 Challenge, the domestic T20 tournament, which is just reaching its, it's the finals being decided now. The Titans will take on the Dolphins from your part of the world. But we need to talk about Dewald Brevis, who's just scored the third highest in the final group game. He made the third highest total in T20 cricket behind Aaron Finch and Chris Gale, but with a higher strike rate. It's just staggering. The numbers, 162 off 57 balls. I watched it live and it just looked like a highlights package. In fact, I thought I was actually watching a highlights package because I think he took 26 off and over, and I thought this must be highlights, and it wasn't. So the numbers are truly staggering. But again, every time he does something extraordinary, I keep thinking, this guy's playing senior cricket for the first time. He's never been in a South African squad, and he's doing things like this. And I just keep thinking that he's creating a career path and setting a precedent that so many other young South Africans may follow.
Yeah, it was an extraordinary innings. the audacity of the shot making and to keep hitting the ball that cleanly for that, that length of time is frankly ridiculous. And it is exciting, of course. But we do have to be careful and remind ourselves that just a couple of podcasts ago, we're talking about just how little we are missing by not watching too much of this CSA T20 challenge, that the standard is not the best. So therefore the bowling is not the best. And, we spoke about Stubbs in previous episodes and the leap up. There still is a leap up. It's exciting, but you'd hope that Titans dressing room keeps on reminding him, feet firmly on the ground, forget the money that's going to be pouring in and all the offers that keep coming to get T20 gigs around the world. Feet on the ground. If your ultimate ambition is to play for South Africa and not just make millions around the world clubbing seals, quite frankly, then you still have to stay humble. And his idol would have heard the same noises from pretty much the time he was a precocious teenager at Affies. You are God sent, and you are this. You will change the way South Africans bat. One of his biggest skill sets was a humility and almost a freakish ability to be anxious before every single game because it mattered. So the minute you take away that nervous energy and excitement because you're telling him that he walks on air and he can bat with his eyes closed and hit sixes without looking, which he did the other day, then you run the risk of spoiling what is a very exciting product. But the key is feet firmly on the ground and remind yourself that those days, as wonderful as they are few and far between, where everything you try happens. You got to start again against the Dolphins in the final. You've got to start again in the new tournament that comes. You've got to start again, and crazy performances like that only heighten the level of expectation around you and the hype and the hysteria and the media about you. But you've got to eliminate all that noise and remember that you can still get a first baller in the next game. So you've got to take everything with a dose of reality. It's very exciting, but there's been a lot of hype and hysteria and looking forward to what he could do. It's important to remind ourselves of the standard that he was playing and the fact that just as Stubbs is finding out at the highest level, it gets harder. It gets harder. So, let's treat it with a dose of reality, of what it was and where he was. But for pure ball striking, incredible. Absolutely incredible.
Tell you what else was incredible was the interview that he gave afterwards to SuperSport, and he made one comment that left Ashwell Prince, who was on the panel that was interviewing him, left him absolutely speechless. So I was that kid, Sams, that when I got my first ever brand new bat. In fact, I only ever had one brand new bat in my entire life. When I got it as a kid, I took it to bed. I slept with it. That's how wrapped up in the game I was. The modern equivalent would be Dewald Brevis. Now, I think if he ever did sleep with his cricket bat, I think he's grown out of that now. But in this interview, I don't know whether you saw it, but he said that he does his own analysis. We spoke in the last pod about the growing industry of analysts, and particularly in T20 game. In the T20 game, we come up with these matchups and stats, and he does that himself. It's just absolutely staggering. He spends hours and hours researching, finding on YouTube and wherever he can find footage of the bowlers that he is going to be facing, and indeed the batters as well, because he bowls very, very decent leg spin. I mean, properly decent, better than Faf du Plessis used to bowl, I think. Anyway, I mean, he turns it. He seems to have a googly as well. I haven't seen a wrong un yet, but I mean, anyway, he does hours and hours of analysis, and he says that he's in that zone where like during this innings, he knew what the bowlers were going to bowl at him. I mean, it's just staggering, isn't it? He really does live and breathe the game. And I don't know how sustainable that is in the long term.
Yeah, long may that innocence and hunger and desire to learn last, because that keeps you sharp. And I've chatted to him. In fact, it was around this SA20, and there were a couple of very quick things that we needed from him in terms of promoting it, because obviously he's one of the players that were released up front. And you've never spoken to a more courteous, and this is not on cameras in front of SuperSport, which you do get training for. This is just a cold call from somebody that you've actually never spoken to in your life, and you could quite just as easily dismiss it and just carry on with your day. But he's missed the first phone call, and he's called back full of apologies and asking what he can do, and then the plan kind of changed, and it was sort of, oh, I'll get back to you because I'm not sure if we still need you. He's phoned back 2 days later. I'm about to go away with friends for the weekend, but I was wondering if you still needed me to do that video, because I wanted to do it properly and in an environment that's controlled, because I know it's important, and we spoke. So there's a real humility and genuine love for the game and what the game has given him. And as long as you don't lose that in the noise, because there will be a lot more noise, and SA20 is coming and all these things, as long as the people around him keep his feet firmly on the ground, he's very exciting talent for South Africa, as you say, with bat ball. The thing that excited me most about that game actually is the catch that he took when Simon Harm was bowling. Yeah. Because it wasn't enough that he made all those runs. That catch on the boundary, flicking it back up and then acrobatically catching it, he can't have watched hours and hours of footage of doing that. That's just instinct. That's just instinct for the game. Of all the highlights, that actually is the one that struck out to me, because he was even happier with that than actually any of the shots that he played, because runs are his bread and butter. But effecting a catch that changes the game and wins a wicket for someone else, and you could see the joy in his face and all his teammates as well. He's a genuine team man, and good for him. It's good to see youngsters living out their dreams and still staying humble enough and realizing that as much as his individual success game, you only win when you're part of a team.
Okay, we'll take a short break, and we'll come back with a short third section. We'll be talking about Faf du Plessis and his schoolboy buddy, AB de Villiers.
If you love the language of cricket and want more, then head over to the 99.94 app, and you can hear all of our podcasts and cricket commentary. We're adding new shows all the time and covering cricket series from all over the world. Be the first to hear all of our announcements by following us on social media at 9994DM. Welcome to Cricket's Conversation.
Okay, just a short section this time, because my timing's not very good once again, Zams. Just think of this as a teaser, because I think we'll be doing several pods on this subject in the future. So a couple of nights ago, I emceed the launch of Faf du Plessis' biography, and I interviewed him on stage. There are so many fascinating things, by the way. There's just, as I mentioned a couple of days ago on another pod, it's just unvarnished truth. I mean, there's the Zippergate, Mintgate. By the way, he was responsible for 2 changes in the laws of the game, actually, because following the Zippergate, when he was done for ball tampering, then it's now in the laws of the game that there can be no metal zipper on any part of your cricketing attire, and also that you can't use a mint to shine the ball. And there's Sandpapergate. I mean, that chapter is absolutely riveting. But I just wanted to talk about, amongst many other things, fascinating his relationship with AB de Villiers. Now, they went to the same school, Uffy's, in Pretoria, and their careers ran alongside each other, but AB's took off, just shot ahead. I And Fuff says in the book, he was left to take the dirt road to success, whereas AB's talent saw him take the superhighway. And so for many, many years, he was playing catch up. But he's so honest about the relationship that he had from a very early age. He talks about the being jealous and resentful of AB. And then how, as he slowly caught up, well, he admits he never caught up. I mean, he was never as talented as AB, but eventually got to the national team, and their friendship became closer again. And when he became captain, the Sandpaper Gate test series, he describes how he went to AB and said, they lost the first test in Durban, and he says, I need you to come really hard. And he talks about how the bullies hate to be bullied, and we're going to have to bully Australia here because, of course, South Africa had never beaten them. And he talks about, again, in complete honesty, about AB's sudden availability for the 2019 World Cup, calling him 36 hours before the squad was announced and having not played international cricket and making himself available. So AB features in the book a lot. And so this is the teaser part, because we'll have to do a series of podcasts to explore this issue. But it reminded me the question to you is why. It reminded me of the fact that AB doesn't enjoy the love and reverence in South Africa that he should, that his achievements warrant.
Yeah, it's a very good question, Manners. And I suppose, AB's in India right now, and the love for him over there goes to extremes. I mean, I saw a picture yesterday of a man who's tattooed AB's face on his forearm. How you do that before any of your family members or a child of yours, but the love is obscene, absolutely obscene. But because it's purely based on cricket, I think in South Africa, and there's a few, tall poppies will tell you that there is a very much a disdain for tall poppies, whether it's intended or not. Kevin Peterson will tell you a different side of the fact that he was outspoken about South Africa and everything they did to derail his career, which is why South Africans hated him for all the noise that he made, and he started patching that up over the years. But then there's, when you can't explain genius, and I suppose people manifest a lot of their dreams into those that they think are gifted beyond normal measures, and maybe you expected AB to touch heights and win things that he wasn't supposed to, and you sometimes forget that, like we say, cricket is a team game, and as brilliant as one person can be, it's never ever going to happen that you're going to win things single-handedly. I mean, ask Brian Lara, ask Sachin Tendulkar. You can be absolutely mind-bogglingly brilliant, but you're still part of a team. And I suppose for a long time he wasn't that expressive of his frailties and shortcomings and anxieties. So people just, a bit like Jacques Kallis, people just see this robot who just across different formats can just make it happen, and it seems to come easier to him than anybody else. And it's hard to build a relationship sometimes with what you cannot understand. And the things that AB de Villiers did at the peak of his powers, very few could even dream of. But he made them, and he made them look easy. And I suppose the cynics would say they felt shortchanged about the very biggest moments, because you had the audacity of talent to win a World Cup or to win something major. Don't know. And then obviously the relationship sort of fell away after that 2015 World Cup, where whoever's book you read, anyone who was in that change room, their lives were never the same after the build up to that match and the aftermath. The pain was, you know, on many levels and in many different directions. It wasn't just losing a match. It was losing control of the situation and losing the team that you wanted and losing the plans that you'd best laid and the weather and all these. It kind of, I suppose it was a bit like kids realizing for the first time that Christmas is just a fantasy or something, but you learn in the harshest way, because every single thing that you've built up and you think you've done all the yards, you've gone through all the pain, and you've got the perfect team and you've got the perfect environment, you've got the perfect captain who's playing the form of his life. Everything is there, and then it gets snatched away so dramatically and so publicly. It's never, ever the same to pick yourself up again. And he's admitted that he fell out of love with cricket, and it never was quite the same after that. And I suppose for the normal man on the South African street, man or woman, it's the not understanding how, when you're so ridiculously gifted, you struggle to get up again. So it's been this distant relationship. But when you speak to him, it's a lot of it was just born out of fear and you know, shyness. And what people mistake for aloofness is actually just genuine shy. You know, a shy boy from Pretoria who just knows how to play cricket but doesn't know how to wade through public relations waters. And for all the help that he got, you know, the public just sees you. And then, you know, Quinton de Kock has gone through that, and you hope Dewald Brevis doesn't go through things like that, because public is unforgiving. Even when they mean well, they are ruthlessly unforgiving, because they don't understand how this person who has everything gives us so little in their minds in terms of their time and their raw emotion and their talent on the biggest stage and winning us the things. You know, the Pink Day is a great day, and there's been centuries where that have been ridiculous, but is there no way you could have transferred that into a World Cup final so that your talent is celebrated by us as much as it is by India? There's this, it's a weird dynamic, but it's, when you ask him, it's the thing that he's proudest of is being South African and playing for South Africa, just like Faf is. So it's complicated, and you know, as fluent as you can be with the bat or ball, sometimes it's hard to express yourself and explain just how much this matters to you and how much it hurts when you see headlines questioning your loyalty or your allegiance, or you know, they're still human, just like we're all human. And we go to work and your boss cucks on you and that's you gone for the day. Their boss is pretty public, you know. The circumstances and consequences of their actions are pretty public. There's millions of eyes scrutinizing every single thing they do, and sometimes we forget that. And that's why I keep on saying, for youngsters like Brevis and Stubbs and whoever else comes through, it's important to try and protect that innocence for as long as possible, because once it's gone, you know, it's gone, and you never ever look at the world the same, and you never, you know, have that wide-eyed expression, and you never, because life has taught you that you can be as well-meaning as you want. This game will hurt you in ways that you never thought possible. It'll break your heart forever. I mean, like we said, 2015 World Cup, every single person has a horror story of where they were crying like a newborn baby, not knowing what to do with themselves over a game of cricket. But that's how much they care. But the next day you wake up and you're a lot more cynical, or you're a little more cynical, because you know that when you invest and the investment doesn't pay out, how deeply it hurts. And I would say that AB probably never recovered from 2015, and a few others probably haven't. And you get up and go back to work the next day and try and fix it, but you'll never go to a World Cup semi-final again and have that opportunity that close where you think everything is in place. And we'll never understand that as mere mortals. We'll never understand that. And maybe that distant relationship is why he doesn't have quite the love that others who've done a lot less and given a lot less in terms of just astonishing just range of highlights and just ridiculousness, where you just go, you can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. The human body and the human mind is not supposed to lap Dale Steyn at 150 and then take a Superman catch and then single-handedly destroy an Australian attack in a test series with so much going on. But you did it, and you can't understand that. Yeah.
Okay, Sams, was it a good resemblance? The tattoo.
It actually was. You know, you could see traces of AB in there. So, yeah, must be weird seeing your face on someone else's arm, a man at that. But anyway, a lot happens in India.
Okay. Everything happens in India. Thanks for listening. Okay. Everything happens in India. Thanks for listening to South Africa on 99.94 Cricket Every Day. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can download the 99.4 app and follow us on Twitter at Neil Manthorpe and at Whamzam17. That's all for this episode. Thanks for joining us.